It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Okay, and this show is brought to you by pscoco.com. Now, here's the deal. It's pscocoa.com. And this is Phoebe Saad's chocolate website. And it's formerly known as Dove. What was it called? Dove Discoveries or something like that? Dove Chocolate Discoveries. And now it's called the Cocoa Exchange. So pscoco.com is Phoebe Saad's chocolate website. You can go there, pscoco.com, and you click on the Shop Now button. It takes you to this beautiful website with all these different kinds of chocolates and cocoa mixes and martini mixes, all that kind of stuff you can get, right? Now, everybody loves chocolate. I don't know anybody that doesn't like chocolate. A little piece of chocolate now and then, right? Everything in moderation. As I say on my Daniel fast, I can't have any chocolate. But day number 9, by the way, on my Daniel fast. But everybody loves chocolate. Now, the thing is this. You can plan ahead. Like right now, you'd love to have a piece of chocolate. You probably don't have one in your house, right? But I'm talking about this chocolate. Your mouth is watering. You want the chocolate. The best possible chocolate you can get is from Phoebe Saad's website, pscoco.com. Now, you order the chocolate tonight. While you listen to the show, you sit back, you put your feet up, right? You're drinking a regular martini. You could be drinking a chocolate martini. The joke's on you, right? You order the chocolate now. It comes refrigerated in a special package. You know, you save the package. You use it for something else around the house. You want to go fishing one day. You put your bait in there, right? Right? You got a whole plan here with the chocolate. But right now, when you're craving for that chocolate, you'd have the chocolate in your house. But what do? No, we say, no, we will go to the supermarket and buy that crap chocolate. Or we'll go to the candy store and buy some garbage chocolate. You could order the finest chocolate from the finest cocoa beans. You can order it right now in the comfort of your home while you listen to the show. How's the audio there in the chat room? Okay? And order the chocolate tonight, and it's there waiting for you. You have it there in advance. Quality chocolate, gourmet chocolate at discount prices. pscoco.com. And then also, too, what do? You're listening to the show. You love the show. This is a sponsor who's laying out money to pay for the show for you to listen to. You're going to buy chocolate anyway, right? Of course. You're going to buy chocolate. Everybody's going to buy chocolate sooner or later. You got good chocolate coming from pscoco.com, Phoebe Saad's chocolate website. You support a sponsor, and you support the show that you enjoy listening to. You can sit back and sip your hot cocoa or your martini mix while you listen to the show. Okay? And you also want to go into the cocoa business, pscoco.com. You go there and you click on the Contact Us button and talk to Phoebe Saad. Get yourself into the cocoa business. And cocoa is actually a superfood. Did you know that? It's very good for you. We just heard from Yoli in the chat room, and she should know. Okay. My public service announcement, I want to drum this into everybody's head because I got to tell you, I go to the supermarket and I have I don't know what PTSD when I go to the supermarket because I see these kids standing up in these shopping carts and they're going to fall down and hurt themselves. Every single day in the United States of America, every day, 50 kids have to go to the emergency room because of an injury from a fall from a shopping cart. Okay? And this is something that we don't need. It's something that's avoidable. It's preventable. And I see these kids climbing around the shopping carts. The parents let them stand up, and they're pushing the cart around. It's crazy. So I saw one time the kid was in the shopping cart standing up on top of a box of diapers. So the kid's her center of gravity is way over the railing there. Insane. Don't do that, folks, please. And I want to start a campaign here to educate shoppers and supermarkets and stuff like that to put an end to this harm to our children. And the children are our future, right? Let's not forget that. We don't want our future bounding out of shopping carts, landing on their heads. Of course not. Okay. Let's see. Okay, public service announcement is done tomorrow. Doing a show tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on American Freedom Radio is the anchor station there, but it'll also be on People's Internet Radio. And it'll be on, what do you call it, all that kind of stuff. PSN, Public Streaming Radio, IPM Nation. And I think we're still on deprogrammed radio, I believe. AwakeRadio.us. All our stations. Spreaker, you could find us on. iHeart, iTunes, YouTube. All those wonderful places. But tomorrow, 5 p.m. live, we're doing a show about Madeleine McCann, the little girl, disappeared. It's going to be, it was right around the anniversary of her birthday or her death or something like that. And the same author is going to come on the show and talk about that. Also wrote the book King of the Freaks about, what's his name? Damien Eccles. So we got that coming up tomorrow. Taped the show yesterday. Really enjoyed it, by the way. With Frank Collada and Denny Griffin. A couple of local Vegas guys. Frank Collada's the mafia guy, the gangster that was in the movie Casino. And he played Joe Pesci's brother or best friend in the movie. And in real life, he was best friends with Tony Spilotro. And he's the last man standing in that case, by the way. Everybody else died, And they're all dead. And Frank Collada's still alive. And a fascinating guy. The last time I had him on the show, I had a bunch of questions for him, but he wanted to leave early. He says, I got to go. What are you going to tell him? No? You know what I mean? So, but this time I got a hold of him, and I held him down. And I had a whole bunch of personal questions for him. I think it's more interesting the questions that he didn't answer more than the ones that he did. If you can kind of listen carefully between the lines. And that's in the member section. That's right up there in the old... Well, it's not up in the member section yet. Don't have a heart attack, okay? I don't need 10,000 emails, please. It's going to be in the member section over the weekend. We got to thank Sean Duff for helping us out with the member section from strawmanmusic.com. He's a Canadian. And thankfully, Mr. Trump, the President, Mr. Trump, is finally dealing with these Canadians and their shady lumber deals and their shady milk transactions. I knew they were up to something. Those Canadians. And now we got them. First 100 days of the Donald Trump, the Mr. Trump, the President, Mr. Trump presidency. And what do we have? It seems like we got a lot of chaos, right? It seems like we got a lot of chaos going on here at the White House, man. But that's okay. It's been worse because we're going to talk about Obama. Mr. Obama. No, he's not president. He's President Barack Obama. You got President Mr. Trump and President Barack Obama. I don't know why that is, but that's how it works. No one ever calls Mr. Obama. Maybe I'll start a trend, Mr. Obama. Anyway. Mr. Obama, not to think that I'm biased here for the Democrats, that I'm some kind of Democrat, you bunch of idiots out there. It's a self-confessed liberal. Bunch of idiots. Okay, President Obama, this character, I'm going to be talking about him tonight, going to get $400,000 for a speech from Cantor Fitzgerald. How sad is that, man? Yeah, people start. I heard a guy. I was walking by a guy on a cell phone today. He was saying he gets $450,000 a year from one source alone, and he was talking about getting another $9,000 from the state of Arizona, whatever you guys doing. I don't know what, but man, that's obscene wealth to get $400,000 for one speech from a Wall Street. So that when you're president, you're sitting there in office, you do what you're told. And then when you get out, they write you a check for $400,000. Wasn't that nice? And people like to call him a communist and a socialist and a terrorist and a Muslim. I don't know, man. It seems like American dollars he's getting from that Cantor Fitzgerald. I think that's that Muslim denaries or whatever that stuff is. But President Mr. Trump's first 100 days, you might recall our great orange leader earlier in the year, not too long ago, he goes out and he fires 48 federal prosecutors, right, from the Department of Justice prosecutors, right? And everybody says, well, listen, that's okay. Bill Clinton did it when he went into office. You fire your prosecutors there, and you bring in your own guys. You bring the Republicans. And I got no problem with that. But the thing is, when Bill Clinton did it, and I'm no fan of Bill Clinton, okay? Well, I hate Bill Clinton, and I hate Hillary Clinton, okay? Pretty much more than I hate President Mr. Trump. If they were orange, maybe I'd perhaps like them more than they do. But the thing is when Clinton did it, he had the replacement guys lined up to get in there and take over these slots so that these prosecutions, these cases that they're working on, like Anthony Weiner, okay, that these prosecutions that they're working on would continue, ultimately we're going to have people getting out of jail because they couldn't go to trial quick enough. You have a right to a speedy trial. This is going to come up sooner or later. Because President Mr. Trump has not replaced any of those prosecutors yet. Okay? And this isn't a case of, it's a Democrat stalling the approvals. No, man. He could appoint 48 guys today. And it shouldn't take that long to appoint 48 guys. And Sessions should be doing it. But for some reason, they're not doing it. They just fired 48 federal prosecutors and have not replaced them for some reason in the first 100 days. Then we have the whole case about NAFTA. Well, he signed a thing. We saw him sign it. It was on TV. They did a whole press conference where they showed him. They had a pen. He gave a pen to each person. And went, I'm repealing NAFTA. Goodbye, NAFTA. Right? Hasta la vista, NAFTA. Right? NAFTA's gone. No, what happened? What? He signed the thing. He gave the pens away to everybody around the table. And then we get an announcement. You know what? Bring the pens back. Give me the pens back, guys. I'm not going to repeal NAFTA after all. I changed my mind. I'm not going to repeal it. Then later on in the day, it's, no. I didn't say I'm not going to repeal NAFTA. No, we're going to renegotiate NAFTA. All in one day. A month. One day you repeal it. The next day we don't repeal it. The same day, we don't know. Give me the pens back. Okay. What's going on here? Then you got this guy, Mike Flynn. General Mike Flynn, you should call him. Okay, maybe it's Mr. General Mike Flynn in this the way things are going nowadays. But Mike Flynn, here you got this guy. And yeah, he was appointed by Obama. He was fired by Obama. He got a security clearance by Obama. Okay, Mr. Spicer, I agree with you there. But the thing is, you got this guy. He's a foreign agent for Turkey. He's working for the Turkish government. He's a foreign agent. And he's not a registered foreign agent. He's a secret foreign agent. He doesn't last 30 days because he's lying to the vice president about when he met with the Russian ambassador. What the hell is going on over there? And the thing is, too, I'm sure this stuff goes on under other administrations. But they know how to do it. They just know how to commit these crimes. Because you got this guy Podesta and these clowns. They're doing the same stuff. The Podesta brothers, they get money from the Russians, too. They're working for the Russians as well. They're just better at doing it, man. Trump can't get away with a damn thing, man. He's just too sloppy and too flaky, man. Comes out with this new tax plan this week. On one page. A one-page tax plan. Okay, it's a brilliant tax plan, right? Let me ask you a question. Do you know, with this new tax plan, right, it's going to affect all of us if it somehow gets, they come up with a real legislation that they write some real laws and it gets approved by Congress. What happens to dependents? Can you deduct your dependents? Are you going to get that, that refund every year that all these people rely on their tax refund, when I get my refund check, because of this cockamamie system. I'm self-employed, so I don't deal with that kind of, where they take stuff out of my paycheck. I don't deal with that, where they deduct from your paycheck every week, and then you get it back at the end of the year because you have so many dependents, and you can write off on your W-2, W-4, whatever that is. Do you know how that's going to affect you? What we do know about is that the only deductions you'll be able to take is charitable deductions and your house, the interest on your mortgage. Okay, so right away that's tilted toward, people rich enough to own a house, And then it says that you don't pay any tax at all if you're a couple making $24,000. Then you pay no tax. I can't argue with that. But the biggest problem I have with this President Mr. Trump's tax plan, the one that we should all be in dreaded fear, okay, is what they like to call the death tax and what is in actuality an inheritance tax. And President Mr. Trump says we're going to do away with the death tax. We're going to do away with the inheritance tax. Now, they like to call it the death tax because they say, well, you worked all your life and you paid tax on your income, and then you have it all saved up, and then you want to give it to you die, and then you have to pay another tax. Your kids have to pay another tax on the money you made. Well, that's one way of looking at it, but if you look at it the other way, if the kids are now collecting this money, the kids are paying the tax on that money. The dead person's not paying that tax because they're dead. It's the person inheriting the money pays this tax. Well, you say to me, well, Ed, why shouldn't I want to be able? Ed, don't you want to give money? You work hard, you save your money, you save $1 million, you save $10 million. You got a couple of houses, a few cars, you got a business, you got stocks and insurance policy. And you would accumulate an estate of $10 million. Don't you want to give that to Victoria, your daughter, and that she can have a leg up and send her kids to a good college? This kind of. Don't you want that, Ed? Yeah, I have no problem with that. See, the problem with doing away with the inheritance tax and having zero inheritance tax is these dynasties, the Procter & Gamble's, the Johnson & Johnsons, the Folgers, the Colgates, the DuPonts, these dynasties of the Rockefellers, of billionaires that, okay, fine, they 200 years ago, they had slaves and they were able to get to go west, young man. They were able to get to the west and, get these oil wells and get there first, because they had money and they got there first. And they had the slaves, and they had the wherewithal, the setup back then 200 years ago to do that kind of stuff. So now they got all that oil, they got the oil wells, they got all that money. They went into the soap business, Johnson & Johnson. They sell you soap and toothpaste every morning. Stuff we all buy every single day. They got an empire. Okay? And they hand that empire down to their lazy, good-for-nothing kids that never worked a damn day in their life and don't deserve that money just for doing nothing, just for the accident of birth. Okay? If you took the kids and you switched them in the hospital, two kids are born, you switch them in those little incubators or those little cribs, whatever they got there at the hospital, right? And then another kid born from a different bloodline gets that money. So it's an accident of birth that they get this money. And it creates, by doing away with the inheritance tax, what we are guaranteeing is that the 1% get more richer and more powerful and retain their wealth and expand their wealth exponentially. And the rest of us have less of a chance of ever breaking out of our slavery existence to these bums and getting a fair shake at this pie. Then we all get a piece of this pie. We're all working. Don't tell me, if you're a working man out there, that you're not working harder than these guys. Okay? It's not about working. Okay, we're working harder than they are. These guys that we inherit, then they can go to the best colleges, these Ivy League colleges and stuff like that. Yeah. And I got a smart kid, man. I got a smart kid with great grades who's going to just shoot in, by the way. You can congratulate my daughter now because she's a shoo-in for the debate captain on her team. And she almost made it to nationals. She made it to state, almost made it to nationals as a sophomore. We're almost guaranteed to get to nationals either in a junior or senior year. And she's probably going to be president of the debate club in future years. But she can't get into Harvard because she didn't go to the prep schools. I can't afford to put her in a prep school for Harvard. I can't get into Yale, you know? It's not a fair deal. I want to give a little shout out to my daughter, too, for helping me out this week. And this kid's a saint, you know? And in town this week in Las Vegas is the National Association of Broadcasters, the NAB conference, a convention, right? And as you always hear about, you know, Art Bell's down there and Jimmy Church and John B. Wells and all these guys are down there. And, you know, and so one of my daughter's friends is involved with a local production of a cartoon where she's doing a voiceover for a cartoon. And they had passes for NAB. These passes would cost $1,500. Otherwise, I would have went in years past. And my daughter talked to the kid and says, hey, you know, can you get my dad, you know, as a broadcaster, if he can get into this, you know, it would be a big advancement for our show here, you know. And we were able to borrow a couple of passes and go down there. It was a hectic day. It was on Wednesday. I woke up that morning. The car wouldn't start because I keep blowing a fuse when you start the car. So I bought these little fuses. I bought a little case of these fuses. And I've just been replacing the fuse, you know, whenever I had to. But that morning, man, my daughter had a test 2 in the morning. And every time I put a new fuse in, it was burning out the fuse before I even started. So we had to have the car towed and have it repaired. And then I had to walk her to school an hour back and forth, you know, walking her down there. And I'm on this Daniel fast. It's like day number 9 today, I think it is. So, by the way, if you want to participate in the Daniel fast, you know, you can start now. You just look it up, Daniel fast, on the internet. And it's pretty much no meat, no fish, no sugar, no coffee, no alcohol. No bread, of course, you know, and just fruits, nuts, and vegetables. You can have a nice little pasta sauce, you know, you can have on some of those veggie pastas, you know, stuff like that. Stir fry, you can eat black bean soup. I made a great vegetable soup with the cannellini beans, you know, tonight. Delicious. Delicious. But so anyway, so Wednesday, when the car broke down, I'm dieting, you know, I'm cranky. And we had to walk all the way down there. Then we had to rent a car. And I had to get you should see the characters that drove me to rent the car. That's a whole other story. But I put out a call to get someone to help me to drive me down there to rent the car. And a couple of crackheads show up drive me down there. I can imagine what was in the car if I got pulled over. Then we went to NAB and we walked all over that place all overnight to check that out. Okay. Anyway, that's my little adventure this week. Coming back after this break, we're going to be talking about Obama and his CIA connections. And we're going to be talking about this Egyptian story, fascinating story. Mr. Trump, President Mr. Trump. This is a really bizarre thing where he invited this woman to the White House named Aya Hijazi and her husband. They were taken prisoner over there in Egypt, and he just got them released. Okay, because of his great negotiating skills. He gets these two released, and he has a photo op with them in the White House, where they come to the White House. Well, I got a letter from someone, and the story has to be looked into. It has to be verified. It has to be investigated. But there's a fascinating letter that gives a whole different story to this side of this case, and it's from somebody in Egypt. So we'll be getting back to this right after these messages here. A really big shoe right after this. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. At our online infidelity investigation, you give us their email address, and we can trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick. And there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anton LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you can find it in the OppermanReport.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music. You have no idea how expensive it would be to have your ad played here on the report. 7 stations. Plus, replay every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Podvis and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner, OppermanReport.com. This show on a major AM FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by the range covers 5 million people in population, where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable price. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by pscoco.com. Yeah, I apologize too about the static during the commercials. I know I have to turn the mute on. I'll remember. I'll do it next week. I promise. Okay. By the way, too, people are saying in the chat room about how these billionaires, they have ways to avoid the inheritance tax. Yes and no. And see, they actually have less ways of avoiding the inheritance tax than the average person does. The average working man, if you want to avoid this tax, you can put your house in joint tenants with your kids. You can put your bank accounts in joint tenants with your kids. But when you start getting into these big, giant with stock portfolios and all this kind of stuff like that, it's much more difficult. And yeah, there's trust and things you can do. I'm familiar with all that kind of stuff. But the inheritance tax is our only hope of ever getting a chance to compete with these people that have the money from 500 years ago, and that's just what it is, man. These guys, they've had this money for 500 years, these families. Okay, back to the notes. Show's almost over. Thank God. Okay. All right, Obama and the CIA. Remember Glenn Beck? Used to have that show on Fox News when Obama first got elected. It was a long time ago. It was 8 years ago for a lot of people listening to the show. I know we have a lot of youngsters out there. A lot of youngins listen to the show. They watch for Topo Gigio. That's for the kids. Anyway, I wonder if I make sense to people sometimes. I have these jokes like inside jokes. Who cares? But Glenn Beck, now he's had like a nervous breakdown. The guy's a mess if you see him now. He wears these sweaters. He has like 4 sweaters on at the same time and a suit jacket over that. I don't know what this guy's up to, who's dressing him. He starts crying when they interview him. It's, the guy's a wreck. Whatever's happened to this man, God bless him. He's a Looney Tune right-wing nut, but God bless him. By the way, he used to be a shock jock. Did you know that? Before he became a right-wing pundit and genius, teaching people about right-wingery, he was a shock jock. Glenn Beck, look it up. But Glenn Beck, Obama gets elected, and people hear this name, Barack Hussein Obama. What's this? Muslim terrorist. You had Osama bin Laden bomb the trade centers, and this guy Barack Obama. That's too close for comfort. There's something going on here. Plus, he's a black guy. What's going on with him? He's got no paperwork. What, who, what, where? All these old white guys get nervous. So you got Glenn Beck gets a show on Fox News. And his whole show every single day, it was fascinating. I would watch this thing. It was fascinating. He had this big whiteboard, and it had one of those markers. And he'd be writing on it like a teacher. He's going to teach us a lesson today. And every single day, the lesson was pretty much the same thing. It starts off with Karl Marx. At the upper left-hand corner was Karl Marx. And then Karl Marx is connected to Stalin and Lenin and Trotsky, and it goes to Obama's mother, and then Obama's mother with, and it was every week somehow connecting Obama to Marx, connecting Obama to Bill Ayers, Obama to Muslim Brother. Every trail led to Barack Obama, President Barack Obama. It started off with Hitler. Obama's part of Hitler. It was great. But, and I used to hear this thing, that Obama, everyone kind of knew he was CIA. I talked to Cynthia McKinney about it, Cindy Sheehan, Springman, that guy, the guy who wrote the book about the visas for Al-Qaeda, very good book. The guy was in the State Department. And, as Obama's carrying out the same policies as Bush and Clinton, also CIA, connected. So I'm flipping through the channels this week, and I said, you haven't seen Obama in a long time. There's all stories about how he's under arrest and he's got his own army, all kind of crazy right-wing nut fake news stories. But Obama comes out and he's giving a speech to these school interns, these young college students. And he comes out. First time we see him in a long time. And he starts his speech and he goes, when I graduated college, I went to work to pay off my student loans, to pay off my student debt. And then I went down at Church Street and I signed up with a community organizers there at Church Street. And then I went to Acorn, and I worked for Acorn. And he's naming the street they're on and the name of the organization. And I worked under so-and-so, and my partner there was Roger Road. Naming everybody. And I said, wait a second. Let's back this up. Let's back this up in reverse. Okay? Right? Back it up. What'd he say? When I got out of college, I went to work to pay off my student loans. Well, where'd he go to work? How come he's not mentioned in that place? Why doesn't he mention that? Right? And I challenge you. Go out there and Google Barack Obama's employment history, Barack Obama's resume, Barack Obama's work history, and you're going to hear about all these, the community organizing, and went to the Senate, and went to whatever, all the stuff he did when he went into politics later on, law firm, all this stuff. But the one you never hear about, that's never mentioned anywhere, and you can't find it unless you Google it along with Barack Obama, and usually Barack Obama and CIA, then it comes up. But when Barack Obama got out of college, he's not going to tell you about it. He doesn't like to talk about it, but I like to talk about it. Glenn Beck doesn't like to talk about it either, by the way. Is the point I'm trying to make. I like to talk about it, though. When Barack Obama got out of college and went to work to pay off the student loans, he went to work for a place called Business International Corporation. That's the first place he went to work when he came out of college. Late in the summer of 1983, the future president of the United States, Barack Obama, interviewed for a job at Business International Corporation. He worked there for a little more than a year as a research associate in its financial services division. And he edited Financing Foreign Operations, a global reference service, and wrote for Business International Money Report, a weekly financial newsletter. And that's interesting. You never hear that about President Obama, or Barack Hussein Obama, as I like to call him on the right wing, right? Now, what is this Business International Corporation? Why is it such a secret? Why doesn't the President Barack Obama, Hussein Obama, why doesn't he like to say, when I came out of college, I went to work for Business International Corporation to pay off my student debts? But he doesn't mention it, does he? A 1977 New York Times article, New York Times, right? All the news that's fit to print. The paper of record, the New York Times, in 1977, back when it had a very good reputation, by the way, mentioned Business International as one of the lesser known of 22 news organizations found to have employed journalists who were also working for the Central Intelligence Agency. Elliot Haynes, who was the head of a Business International, said his father, Eldridge Haynes, had provided cover for 4 CIA employees in various countries between 1955 and 1960. A CIA front company, Business International Corporation. And that's where President Barack Obama went to work right after he came out of college. Now, why wouldn't Glenn Beck say, and did you know that there's Marxist, socialist, Muslim, atheist, communist, terrorist? Barack Hussein Obama tried to sneak into the CIA by going to work for the business. Why didn't he ever say that? What? You would think from his end, you put 2 and 2 together. You say, well, he snuck in to spy on us. This Muslim terrorist spy. Right? But no, never mentioned, because they know. Glenn Beck knows he's CIA. Sean Hannity knows Muslim Brotherhood is CIA. He sits back there all smug. Oh, yes, when the overthrow of the Egyptian government, I predicted the Muslim Brotherhood would go in there and take over. And people hear Muslim Brotherhood and they think, oh my God, it's a Muslim. They're Muslim. They're terrorists. They're the bad guys. Look up the history of Muslim Brotherhood. It was created by the MI5, British intelligence, and CIA. Okay? Damn it. Speaking of Egypt, get back to my Egypt studies. Yeah, these are segues. That's what they're called in the business here. We're in the business of professional radio and entertainment. Right, there's a Muslim ring on his finger, right? All that stuff. Barack Hussein, the Muslim conspiracies. They were close up on his wedding ring. Look at that. He's a Muslim. Okay. I just went to some Christian church in Chicago as a cover. It's all a big trick. Guy's drinking beer. He's a Muslim drinking beer. All right, whatever you want. I don't care. Anyway, very strange story of Aya Hijazi and her husband, Mohammed Hussein. two young Americans of Egyptian origin. According to the couple, they and five other of their friends, who remain nameless in all the reports I've seen, I'm reading from a letter that was written by someone in Egypt about this story, were inspired by the January 2011 Soros-orchestrated color revolution in Egypt to leave behind their lives in the U.S. and move to Egypt, where they started an NGO, a non-government organization. Within a very short time, Aya was invited on a number of Egyptian talk shows, where the sweet-faced young woman explained that the couple's NGO, named Baladi, which means my country in Egyptian, rescued street children from a life of poverty and danger and gave them an education, a safe place to live, and a real opportunity for a decent future. She often brought along a few little boys who looked clean and shiny and confirmed that Baladi was a wonderful organization. Many viewers sent money. But then something strange happened. Some of the little boys, including several who had appeared on TV earlier, said that they had escaped from Baladi. And they told a very different story. They said that far from being a safe shelter where they were educated and received loving care, Baladi consisted of a small apartment where dozens of children were held prisoner in terrible conditions and subjected to severe and constant sexual and other physical abuse. Only one reporter took the trouble of going to the address listed by the organization. He filmed his report. All he found was a locked apartment on the top floor of a dingy, ramshackle building. There was no sign. The reporter interviewed residents of the building and of the neighborhood, and none seemed to know anything about Baladi, other than that foreign men frequently went in and out of the apartment. The police investigated, and they found the children's testimony credible. Baladi was not a legally registered NGO, and it was operating in violation of Egyptian law and soliciting money illegally. Aya Hijazi and her husband were arrested. This caused an international outcry in the Western media, Western-based human rights organizations, and even the White House. Getting Aya and her husband released was a priority of the Obama administration. Oddly enough, after 3 years, the case never came to trial, even though it was an established fact that the NGO had been operating and soliciting money illegally. Furthermore, its only address was indeed just a small rented apartment, despite its claim of housing dozens of children. Did the couple violate Egyptian law? Yes, they did. After President Sisi's recent visit to the United States, U.S. President Trump said he had personally requested Aya and her husband to be released to the United States. And lo and behold, the case finally came to trial, and they were all acquitted. So Aya and her husband and their companions were transported back to America in a U.S. Air Force plane, accompanied by a top White House official, and were received as returning heroes by President Trump himself in the White House. Now, this came from someone on the ground in Egypt. It was posted on his Facebook page in Egyptian, by the way, and translated to English. So people need to look into that more. Now, that's the only substantiation that I have of it. It's another version of events. You hear people talk about how, because there's a strange picture of Aya Hijazi and her husband there with President Mr. Trump in the White House when he's greeting them, after releasing them from this prison. And you read the stories. Every other story you're going to read about this says, well, the Washington Post says that they investigated and they weren't guilty. And a lot of people were getting arrested around the time of the Egyptian Revolution. What's that thing called? The Arab Spring. So that's something that people need to take a good look at. Spent several days this week. We're talking about the saga of John S. Captain. the saga of John S. Captain. Remember we had John S. Captain on the show to tell us about the murder of his girlfriend, quote unquote, Tiffany Jenks, and how she was mind controlled and tap, 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 and she talked like a baby, and then she was mind controlled. And then we had Rich Lovett on the show, and he gave his version of events, and then we tried to have John Captain back to finish his story, and he kind of fell apart. Since then, they tried to Shanghai me into a debate between these two. And then when I started asking Captain about his whereabouts, he told me he's in China. He wasn't in China. We don't know where he is. He denies it. Then he blocks me on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I'm getting all these court documents now sent to me by these people over this Black Rose organization. And they're sending me all this stuff. They sent me the confession of the shooter in this case. Daniel, I forget his name. They sent me this, the guy's interrogation and his confession. So this is the saga, and I said I was done with John S. Captain, but this is the further saga of John S. Captain. The saga of John S. Captain came obsessed with a crime. He can't get any of the facts straight. The man's wasting all of our time. I gotta get a harmonica. Okay, that's my little ode to John S. Captain that I wrote today. Okay. My best little Bob Dylan voice. I used to play the harmonica, by the way, when I was a kid. I was going to run out and buy a harmonica this week and do that, but I figured the whistling was fine. Anyway, I read the whole confession. And one of the contentions of Mr. John S. Captain, the hero of our story here, is that Dan, the confessed shooter, was found with $7,000 in his possession that night. Well, when you read the confession, that's not at all what they say. There's no record. He had several $1,000s in his pocket. He had a couple of $1,000 in his pocket, several, probably 3,000. But in his confession, he's explaining why he wanted to buy a gun. He says, I don't have a bank account. I carry all my money in my pocket. I had a friend who was robbed at the bus stop for $90. And on some days, I'll have $7,000 in my pocket. Which makes sense, too, by the way, because the guy was a mover. And sometimes when you're moving companies, they pay in cash and, he has to go deliver that money. So he would have a big chunk of money in his pocket. But he did not have $7,000 on his person the night of the murders or even when he was taken into custody. That's fiction. That's made up. That's craziness. There are some interesting things in this confession, this statement here, where it talks about the two other shooters, not shooters, but the two other people involved in this crime. The male, Josh, had a pentagram tattoo, and the woman had pictures of her where she had this gun in her mouth, pictures of the gun in her mouth, and they say the gun in other places, like in her vagina or her anus, who knows what they're talking about. But the cops are talking about that she had pictures of her with this gun in other places. Very bizarre. Also, too, we've established, too, that the child endangerment charges that were involved in this, the child was not 9 years old, as Captain claimed, but 13 years old. That's been established. And Mr. Captain claimed that, according to this confession, which I've read the entire confession now, that they were raping this child as a celebration on the night of the murder. That's not at all what this confession says. What it says is that they were having, the man, Dan, says that he woke up, they were having sex on top of him, okay, to celebrate this murder, okay, at one point. And he says they were having sex all over the room. They had sex in the daughter's bed, but not with the daughter, but just with her in the bed, and that she saw them naked and stuff, and she made a comment of, hey, is it safe to come out, because they were having sex all over the place. So that was part of the endangerment charges. And there was other rape charges that took place in their other travels in other hotels. So the problem here we have with this story here is that even if you believe everything the captain has to say from his perspective, from his point of view, it's still an iffy story. There's a lot of holes in it. But then when you start looking at the facts of the story and you see all the stuff he has wrong and he's confused about and he just doesn't understand, or that he deliberately misrepresents, in many cases, that's where we're left with the saga of John S. Captain. And my little song is an ode. Ed is not drunk. I have not had a drink. I haven't had a drink in over 9 days, my friend, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm still doing a Daniel Fast. If you want to get involved in a Daniel Fast, you can start now. Google Daniel Fast, and you can start the diet with me. And we're going to put, you can take pictures, before and after pictures. And we're going to put all these stories, you write your recipes you've used for the week, and the different stories and stuff like that, and we'll put it in the book. We're going to put out a book on the Daniel Fast. So you'll be publishing in a book. No, I agree with you. I'm not making excuses, but I'm just saying that the facts that it is right. If they listen, the kid was definitely being abused. Okay, having to witness these two naked people having sex all over the room and in her bed while she was sleeping, and she said she didn't sleep, but she couldn't sleep all night long. So, but actually having penetration in this child that night did not happen, as Mr. Captain claims. So either he reads the same documents we're reading and he just doesn't understand what he's reading, or he's just making things up. Is my point. Okay, that I'm trying to make here. All right, guys, listen. If you enjoyed the show, there's a lot of new great content up in the members section. OppermanReport.com. Trust me, there's stuff you hear on this show you're not going to hear anywhere else. Tonight you heard some stuff tonight. Everyone just ran to town with this John S. Captain story. No one took a look at it. No one bothered to read all the documents. So I'm working my butt off here for you. OppermanReport.com. Become a member and help support the show. You want to sponsor the show? We're going to have a Red Ouimet is going to be a sponsor of the show. I'm waiting for his check to come in. And he wrote the book, Nobody Cares and What I Did About It. And he's that gangster from Chicago who testified against all those people. He ran all those massage parlors and stuff there. And we're going to have him back on the show to explain more of his story. He's going to be sponsoring the show soon. But if you want to get your business, your event, you got an event coming up, even if you just want to sponsor for a week, contact me. We'll work out a deal. OppermanReport@gmail.com. I'm trying to get this hernia operation, and I'm doing pretty good. So a lot of jobs I'm working. So I'm able to save up and get this operation. It's the cheapest doctor in town. It's not very comforting to think. I'm going to this, discount hernia guy. You know what I mean? It's not very encouraging. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. So you want to send a donation toward my hernia operation, OppermanReport@gmail.com. Coming up after this is Pierce Redmond. Everybody loves Pierce Redmond. And he has Tom Secker and Chuck Ocelli on his show. And they're going to be talking about a lot of different things. I have not listened to the show, but he always puts out good quality content. Pierce Redmond, Porkins Policy. Tomorrow, don't forget, 5 p.m., we're going to be talking about Damon Eccles, King of the Freaks, and also the Madeleine McCann story with some real experts on the case. So that's it for tonight's show. Really big shoe. And I'll see you next week. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, actually. Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the audience and your continued support and all your kind words and stuff that I get from you during the week. Thank you very much. Good night.